So I am going, you can see minor changes in the title of my paper. I'm going to present the outlines, the scheme of a case study related to the theoretical questions of intermedial and intertextual research and semiotics. Since the limits of time do not allow to discuss both theory and practice, I have chosen to hide theory under the water of Guadagnino'S pool. I will try to show it in schematic way. To reduce just the theory to a short introduction with the hope that the analytic steps will let you see the theoretical and methodological background. Anyway, I am open to any questions. So first, as I have mentioned, intertextuality, intermediality, and semiotics. When we think about intertextuality in the wide sense of Barth and Kristeva, the concept of intertextuality becomes just a useless label to mark a dialogic nature of each media product. When we take into account the concept of Gérard Genette, it becomes really useful, and adaptation studies, intermedial studies gradually try to utilize it. And I think that it has to be reconsidered with it, within what could be called medium-sensitive approach. The lens for such approach we can find in Lars Ellisrom's discussion of intermediality as intermodality. You can see his scheme of modalities. He defines modality as a mode of manifestation and experience of cultural phenomena or construct, and identifies a complex of four modalities that form basic medium: material, sensorial, spatiotemporal, and semiotic, and then speaks about that three-layered definition of media. When used together with Genettian matrix of transtextual relations, it helps to define first how the material interface of a media product physically inscribes the reference to other texts and media, how the particular discernible modes of the references shape the layers of dialogue with other texts and media, how they trigger the media aspects of the dialogue, and how this dialogue, finally, semiotic aspect, affect reception and signification. To exemplify the practical reasoning of this combination, Ellisrom and Genette, and its potential, I propose to focus on the three movies by Italian director Luca Guadagnino. Desire Trilogy. Desire Trilogy is a authorial definition, architectural definition. He himself said that those three sequentially created, thematically, stylistically, structurally distinct movies: Io sono l'amore, A Bigger Splash, Call Me by Your Name, that it is a trilogy. So this architectural reference just as if forces the viewer to search for correspondences or something else. That trilogy represents a remarkable example of moving pictures, as it seems to me. They address the issue of intermediality and perception in the plot, by the plot, and involve the matters of intermediality and perception in a complex system of transtextual relations and meaning making. I will try to show how the filmic paratexts credits differentiate the layers of the dialogue between the text and media, how the dialogue changes the strategies of reception, and how it participates in meaning making. So first, the movies present fictional and extremely sensual love stories. They show desire as longing for the haptic conjunction with the other, for overcoming the physical distance between the bodies. And all of the films transfer this longing to interaction between text and media. First, this longing becomes visible through the ways in which the films overcome the borders between them. The movies create a whole range of repetitive devices. Where is my scheme? Disappeared. I'm sorry. Repetitive devices, the tables will be later, I think. They first relate love stories to arts and media, and the main characters in the second and in the third parts of the trilogy, Marian and Elio, are musicians, and the first shows Emma, here she is, shows Emma uncovering her suppressed artistic nature through the redesigning of her body image. Here is with reference to simultanism and Delaunay. All of them configure a special unity around it, arranged around the Italian villas with swimming pools, and the pools become the place of death in the first and in the second films, and rapprochement in the third. All of them involve the motive of another British Russian Jewish in the estranged space, mark the pivot points of the stories by religious feasts: Christmas, the feast of Saint Joseph, and Hanukkah, the Jewish feast for rededication of the Jerusalem temple. Repeatedly shows eating with a focus on fish, associate eating, you can see it, and associate eating with the motive for the Last Supper. Io sono l'amore shows family dinners as Last Suppers for both Eduardo Sr. and Jr. In a bigger splash, the last dinner becomes the Last Supper for Harry Father. Call Me By Your Name ends with serving the table for Hanukkah, the trilogy's unshown Last Supper. With all, the Last Supper motive structurally frames the overall sequence, because serving the dinner meal table or supper meal table before Eduardo Sr. death opens the first story, and the serving of the dinner table or supper table, if you want, closes the last one. Thus, the three-part sequence appears to be associated with idea of birth, death, and happy death, Saint Joseph, and revival in another form status. It poses a riddle of unclear sacralization of the whole and of the secular stories. Finally, the whole is framed like a picture. Besides, each part of that whole is framed by the paratexts that concurrently refer to different texts and different media, thus complicate the transtextual and intermedial nexus and evoke the confusion of senses in two meanings of the word: sense as sensation and sense as meaning. To untangle the threads, a viewer has to take up the challenge to consider perception strategies that each reference proposes. The credits, as you can see, the credits of Io sono l'amore refer to the literary word and to the unpublished literary source based on a story by Guadagnino, but named the film by aria line Io sono l'amore from Italian opera Andrea Chenier by Umberto Giordano, and you can see that this line and this explanation is repeated in the second film. Umberto Giordano, based on the life of the French poet. The title indicates two directions of dialect, literature, and opera. In difference from literature that has to activate hearing, opera invites to connect hearing with seeing, to see the sound of singing, and then to combine sound icons, visual icons, and symbolic signs in the process of meaning making. The credits of A Bigger Splash define the film as the remake of adaptation. Thus also refer to literature, yet form of this reference creates a tension between seeing and unseeing the shown word, literally. Instead of a real name of the writer, we could see on the cover of the novel or the book La Piscine and in the opening credits of Dere's adaptation, Jean-Emmanuel Conil, Guadagnino'S Splash marks his speaking pen name page. It has appeared on the cover of the novel in another edition later. This name game refers to the intermedial tension of the hypertextual dialogue with hypertext with the film, Dere's film. The place of Dere's and Conil's writer, Jean-Paul, is occupied by the photographer in Guadagnino's case and director of documentaries, Paul Desmet. Journalist writer Marianne becomes the singer Marianne Lane with lost voice. Music producer Harry is the only one who saves his professional identity. Thus, the plot of the hypertext replaces hypotextual writing with music and photography, and the paratext that is credits mark this transfer by the title of a painting by American painter David Hockney. And the paratext then the credits insert the story of this transfer between the two biggest splashes, painted Hockney's and cinematic Guadagnino'S. One is shown in the opening, another one in such mode as you can see at the end. The title of the film invites to hear the shown that is visually iconized music and word in the story of a singer with lost voice, and then to transfer visual icons to sound icons and symbolic signs. The title frame in turn freezes the tension between hearing and seeing the sound. The credits of the last film, Call Me By Your Name, define it as a classical example of literature to screen adaptation. However, the imposition of the credit titles upon the photos create a tension between hearing and seeing, and this tension as if invites to remember the hypertext, the novel by Asiman, who here is shown as an actor playing a role. But in the film he is not a writer. The image of the iconic image, the central image, is the image of Basilica of San Clemente. It disappears from the filmic story along with all storylines connected to writing as such. The novel includes an episode of encounter with a fictional poet commenting his poems, Se l'amore and Syndrome San Clemente. The poet's explanation associates longing for the lost love and for conjunction with the lost left space, with the experience of palimpsestuality involving incompleteness and changeability and the change of name. Basilica San Clemente here in the novel is described as a multi-layered building superimposing several historical layers and different persons with the same name, Clemente or Clemens. And San Clemente syndrome appears as a vision called by sound. The sound becomes, in the novel, the sound becomes the stimulus for the revival of the past love space, lost love space. Novel's Elio hears the song that revives a space of his childhood, as you can see, and love of his childhood. And Oliver comments that if the job of poetry, like that of wine, is to help us see double, then I propose another toast until we've drunk enough to see the world with 4 eyes, and if we are not careful, with 8. It is there you can see some frames from another film, not from the adaptation of the novel. So the novel shows sound perception as an instrument of spatializing the past time, as a device that provokes seeing, to see the world with 4 or 8 eyes. And what does the film as novel's adaptation, the film excludes all the storylines related to San Clemente, Syndrome San Clemente, poetry, writing, etc. Still, the trilogy creates the iconic images of its own to involve the viewer in the curious experience of San Clemente syndrome. Io sono l'amore introduces 2 wedding gifts of Tancredi, just several central images. Io sono l'amore introduces 2 wedding gifts of Tancredi to his wife, the name Kitish, acoustic symbolic sign, and the portrait visual icon. Both are connected and interconnected, both connected to the Russian past, which occurs as elusive vision. It's not Russia, it's just, it is shown as elusive vision, aroused by sound, by the repetitive address Kitish. Then in the dialogue with Antonia, Tancredi's wife says that Emma is not her real name. At home they all called me Kitish. Kitish is a toponym, the name of a miraculously saved mythical city hidden at the bottom of the lake. The legend became best known from Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov's opera, The Tale of Invisible City of Kitish and Maiden Fevronia. And the painted portrait of a woman that hangs over the writing desk in the guest hall of Villa Rekia depicts Russia's great soprano of the 18th century, opera singer Praskovia Zhemchugova or Praskovia the Pearl. Russian culture, to which both signs refer, includes the only one person to have been named in a similar manner, the woman of Kitish, Kitizhanka. It was the Russian poet Akhmatova who immortalized the figure of Praskovia in a poem without a hero. Both sound symbol and visual icon here gain the traits of index and activate the necessity of seeing the word and hearing the image. And the space of the past appearing as estranged elusive vision is shown as generated by sound. The third film, here are a few just illustrations, because the film represents Akhmatova's lines. The third film, Call Me By Your Name, repeats the device in another manner. When presenting visual icon, statue, and acoustic symbolic sign, its oral commentary, we see this connection. When Professor Pellman sees the antique statue removed for the water of Lake Garda, he notes this statue was a gift from Count Lecky to his lover, contralto Adelaida Malanotta. His words refer to the great Italian opera singer of the beginning of the 19th century, who is best known for her title role in Gioacchino Rossini Tancredi. Similarly to the portrait, the sculpture freezes singing and music, and here we can see another movement. It shows the past as an art object from the past. There, illusive vision generated by sound, here the past as an art object. And finally, A Bigger Splash presents the swimming pool connecting all the movies. Splash shows it as image object we can see as a hidden align word, the title of the hypertext in foreign language, La Piscine, swimming pool, and as a hidden text together, novel and the film. Swimming pool as a word, as a hidden text is hidden, yes, and the swimming pool on another from another point of view, we can see just physically it as a film, as an image object. And this film creates a tension between seeing the sound and unseeing the sound, concurrently referencing to the huge amount of ideas, and nothing is what it seems between them, naming it as by Hockney's painting's name and framing by the opposing two splashes. The second part of the trilogy shows the past, love, life, texts, whatever you want, as a real vision of the sound in present. It implements longing for the haptic conjunction with the other, for overcoming the time-space distance in the concrete object in swimming pool. And it's interesting that the villa, or the third film, in reality does not have a swimming pool, and it was made especially for a film. It shows the sound of the past as an object we can touch, as concrete object. Finally, it focuses on music and embodies music in other discernible visual figures. So the splash, you can see, just focuses on music, deprives the singer of her voice, places the action on an island opposed to the lands of Lombardy in the first and in the third, doubles the image of fish, showing it as an organism and handmade object, and visualizes music and language in all possible form. You can see just a part of them. Those and other devices make the film the center of this three-part pool vision, and it has the three-part whole, and this phenomenon changed the direction of the search for an architect. It forces to see that the trilogy's sequence unfolds in the manner of an altar triptych of a painting with doors or wings exposed in a church, not in the museum. As Lynn Jacobs explains, the wings presuppose different degrees of opening and configure the structure that shapes the boundaries between the interconnected different panels. The different times and spaces of action, different status of the figures, and distinct states of being. The triptych invites one to see possible transformations of the whole as the degree of opening the doors changes and provides a wide variety of views. It constitutes the narrative as simultaneously dynamic and static, material dematerialized, haptic and estranged. The central panel of Guadagnino'S triptych is devoted to music and musicians, and music is surrounded by presentation of painting and architecture on the left door, and sculpture and literature on the right. Nevertheless, it implicitly inscribes music and literature to the left and to the right. Marianne, the singer representing a multimedial musical phenomenon of the conventional present, rock music, melody word vision, is surrounded by the two other singers representing musical phenomena of the past opera. And finally, a few words reference to the Last Supper. The Last Supper provides the scriptural basis for the Holy Communion, and the fishes was an early Christian symbol for the Eucharist. As a painting with doors, it structurally embodies the concept of Epiphany and Revelation, and the obvious desacralization of the reference to the Last Supper in the filmic triptych reveals that it functions as a sign of memory akin to Joyce's concept of Epiphany. Joyce performs the epiphanic revelation within the diegetic world of his literary narratives. Guadagnino transfers it to cinema and performs first of all on the level of expression, on the discursive level. And the modes of this performance become an invitation to use senses to produce meanings. Thank you. That's all.